Hello, Malar. How are you? Long
I
time no
am
see.
long time no see, no talk, no co-host. I've missed it, and of course, I'm hoping that the muscle that I lost, I've had enough practice so that we have a smooth show because
You will.
we
You
have an
will.
exciting guest today.
Yes, you will have a good show. Don't worry. I have total confidence in you. And I must say, Malar, I am celebrating 1 year since I've been a co-host in leadership in Asia.
Happy
LIFA.
anniversary!
Thank you. All right.
Yes, thank you for saying yes when we asked you,
No,
and
thank you.
life has never been better. You've stretched us so much. So I'm not too sure. There are days I wake up and I say, thank God for Ashok. And there are days also, why does this guy make us do more work? But this is not about us. We need to
It is
use
not about
every,
us. Yes,
we
it's
need
about
to
our
use
show.
everything,
Right.
our show and our dear guest who's happily waiting. So Ashok,
Yeah.
why don't
Before I
you
bring
take
on the
us
guest, let me tell you about the show first. All right. For all our friends who are logged in every week to listen to us, the Leadership in Flow Asia is a weekly show every Thursdays at 6 p.m. Singapore and Malaysia time, where we speak to leaders and get their insights about growth, about their personal growth, about their leadership growth, and about business growth. And this month, the month of September, we are talking about evolving leadership. And today, specifically, we are looking at marketing, not just marketing, but purposeful marketing. And with that, we have Stephanie. And Muller, tell us a little bit more about Stephanie and bring her on.
Yes. So, I better introduce her first.
Yes,
Huh?
yes.
You got Shami excited because it's a year with Ashok. She says yes. It's a year with Ashok, or it's a year with Ashok. But never mind. We will do that a year with Ashok later. But yeah, so I met Stephanie pretty recently, actually. While having a conversation about work and, of course, leadership challenges, and I was pretty, I would say, impressed at the way she was thinking about marketing. And it's very nice, I think, because marketing very much can put the business, the brand, in the right space. And I
Mm,
was pretty inspired, I would say, at the way, at a personal level, when we were having a conversation, how she continues to check in with herself to see whether she is doing marketing for the intended purpose of the
okay.
business. And
Nice.
I'm sure leaders do that, but I think it was so good to meet a leader like that, which is why
Mhm.
I said, hey, can you come to our show? And she said yes. And so let's bring her
Bring
on.
her on.
Hello everyone.
Hi, Stephanie.
Hi.
All right. So, yes,
Yes.
Muller.
Stephanie is there. All right. Welcome, Stephanie. Thank you very, very much, for saying yes to our show so quickly. Glad to have you this year before, we bring our show to a close in November. And, you are in marketing. And, I looked at your background. You've had a pretty interesting background, generally in the finance industry, been in marketing, then in operation, bit of consulting, and back to marketing, right? So that's a lot. I think a lot in terms of, like, somehow or other, marketing keeps pulling you back, right? Maybe because
Yes,
we
right.
need you. So help us and our audience understand, the 11 people on LinkedIn, please say hello so that we know who you are. And, the rest of the four people on, let me see, on Facebook, say hello to us so that we are also excited, right? But as we get excited, so all in, we are, having quite a number of people who tuned in because obviously marketing is a very important area. So Stephanie, help us do, justice, help us understand how you transitioned into marketing again. So you were in marketing,
That's right.
you started from there, right? So tell us a little bit about your journey, your career journey into marketing, and then out and then back in again, and how you
Right.
find it purposeful.
I suppose if I were to sort of like explain the entire journey, I'll probably reveal my age. I think it's all right. It was roughly about 25 years ago when I graduated. I don't know what I would like to do, typical um, after you finish your diploma, you're just wondering what you could contribute to this society. So I went into this very analyst role, and then I realized that I have great interest in sales and marketing. And I remember approaching the sales director and asked if they would require a telesales. And that's how I began my sales journey. And back then, I'm sure every one of us are very familiar with this telemarketing thingy whereby you receive a call from a bank or from an insurer, typically trying to sell your product. And back then, the conviction is that the population in Malaysia are not greatly protected. I think by now you probably will know that I'm talking about insurance. And back then, is also the environment is such that most people are very reluctant to even talk about insurance. It's like a taboo thingy. And I venture into an industry whereby I will call our customers, not myself, my team will call our customers, and we will sort of like very pushy, I would say, to sell them a product, regardless whether they want it or they don't want it.
Sure.
And that time, you sort of have that conviction, right, to sell a product because the general message is that the population in Malaysia are not protected. And therefore, there is this conviction to sell the product. And back and transit to now, 25 years later, just realize that the same method may work for certain layer of customers, but in large, because of the involvement of technology and whatnot, and consumer behavior, they become more intelligent. And this method will not then become purposeful and it becomes very pushy. And hence, if I look at it, the transition from telemarketing to to operation and back to telemarketing, it makes me wonder whether that particular concept um, is it still purposeful as I evaluate the entire journey from now, look back to 25 years, in retrospect.
Ah, so actually, it's interesting because usually what I know, I mean, because you say 25 years, I've also been there, right? So we come from a similar era, or if not the same era. So I can perfectly understand. I think, but what is really interesting is that you wanted to be in the marketing team because usually sales and marketing most difficult to recruit people, right? So
That's
what
right.
was so I understand the part about how you say you are convicted, so let's park that for a while. But I thought what is really interesting, what attracted you to say I want to get into sales and marketing, because that's like a difficult thing to do now all the time, and this was many years ago. So what attracted you to get into sales and marketing?
I suppose essentially, if we go back to the basic marketing, whether it's face to face, whether it's digital, or whether it's telemarketing, essentially require us to reach out to our prospective customer, to influence them, to inform them about a product and their services. And it's supposed to help them in their day-to-day lives. And me as a consumer, I'm sure both of you are also consumer and the audience are consumer, you would like to make an informed decision before you engage a service or before you purchase a product. And and for me, very important because I myself is a consumer and I really look at customers' experience is something important to me, and therefore that gives me that assurance and that idea and conviction that sales and marketing for me is important, and for the community at large is equally important.
Mm, mm, mm. So I like the bit that you say that you look at it as helping basically consumers make informed decision, right? So let me help you to get all the information that you need so that you know how you're making your choice and your decision. That seems to be the
Right.
pull, and which is why you were really very excited when you were making, I suppose, the outbound calls at that moment, because you were there, believing that you're going to now educate people so that they are taken care of, from an insurance point of view. Nice. So that's really interesting. Your pull, and it already tells your story. Already tells us how you are as a person. You were already looking for. You were seeking clarity even in your first job. Is what
That's right.
I am actually getting right now. And now that you've seen your transition, so can I just ask you one question? So you did marketing and then you went into operational,
Yep.
right? Or operations a bit, and then you came into marketing. Can you help us understand how from marketing, when you go into operations, how that adds value to operation from your perspective? And then going back into marketing, how did that add back value into marketing?
the the transition from marketing to operation was it was intentional because back then it is an opportunity to explore whether is marketing is something that I want to do it for a a lifelong career, or will operation will be a lot more suitable for my kind of
Mm.
character and nature. And I realized that when I go back to operation, though it is mundane, but I can see things from the sales and marketing perspective rather than a very operation. So your perspective of involved in whether it's stakeholder meeting, whether it's a decision making, you will look at it from the sales and marketing point of view rather than pure operation point of view. So that really helps me to add value in the entire decision making process rather than a very silo operation point of view. Yeah, if I would
Mm,
sum it up.
mm, mm. So what I'm
Wow.
hearing is, yeah, you it's nice, right? Because I think this is why in some organizations, right? I mean, it's basically empathy within, right? We're all in different parts of a business to serve the same purpose, but sometimes we can miss out because we may not truly understand what it feels, to serve your consumers, your customers, with from a different role. And so when you do operations, then you actually get a different perspective, and then when you come back to marketing, it adds value to in the way you're thinking. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for that, Stephanie. And I'm sure Ashok is ready with his next thought. But before that, Ashok, can I just say hello to Hi Raj Jaswant, that's my schoolmate from
Oh,
Ipoh. Thank you for joining us. Yes. And hi Gerald. Gerald says hi Malar, Ashok, and Shamini. Shamini is not here. Gerald, you can say hello to Stephanie instead. So thank you for joining us, Gerald.
no. Thank you very much. And hi, Gerald, too. I do know you. Stephanie, I love this. I love this because you started off by saying that you, like most of us, I suspect, not all, right? Trying to figure out what we want to do in life. And I like the fact that you said that you wanted to see how you could make a contribution to society. I
That's
like
right.
that. You know, and then you looked at, okay, I'm going to go into marketing because you saw a gap, a need,
Mm,
right? And you spoke about from the insurance point of view, there was a gap, and so therefore your main focus was on how to influence and inform. You know, I love what you talked about, and you mentioned something very interesting. You said consumers, right? you want to help them make informed decisions, and you have seen some changes over time in terms of consumer behavior, right?
Yeah,
I think the tools have expanded from your telephone nowadays to digital.
that's
But I'm
right.
just curious, have you seen something change within the consumer behaviors, or something that is very common even 25 years back, even now? If there is one principle that you see, what would that be?
I, I suppose I should currently when we even my existing team are doing telemarketing, I realized that when we call the customers, first of
Mhm.
all, the scam calls skepticism is the
Yes.
major hurdle, and I salute my team. They are very resilient.
Mm,
They keep calling the customer. We change different ID number just to avoid customer thinking that we are potential scam call. Other than that, I also realized that customer are very intelligent nowadays. They will probably ask us where we are calling and
mm,
what sort of information can I Google and assess and study prior of making an informed decision. So I realized that that part of a conversation does not or do not surface 20 years ago when we are still not in the world of digital and website and whatnot. Right now, it's just a Google away, and I call my friend Google generation because we all will Google about certain places to
that's right.
eat, product, and we can even read the review before we purchase a product from Lazada and whatnot. I suppose insurance is getting very competitive, whereby customer will ask us, if I were to purchase this plan,
Hmm.
do I get to study the information on the website prior of making a decision? So that delays the entire decision making. At the same time, what we have explained to customer has to be very congruent and aligned with what is the actual offer from the product. I'm not saying that those days they intentionally deviate from the actual product information
Sure,
and what
sure.
but
Yeah.
right now, it's getting a lot more tougher because customers are a lot more savvy, tech savvy.
Hmm.
They are a lot more intelligent and they know how to source for information and even make comparison prior of making a decision. So therefore, different channel will have their challenges because the product is always priced very differently, whether it's a face-to-face product, whether it's a
Yes.
digital product, or it's a
Nice.
telemarketing product.
Right.
That's right.
So what I'm hearing is one thing you mentioned is I summarize it as empathy is still very important,
That's
understanding
right.
from the client, customer's point of view. And what I'm hearing from you is customers have access to information today.
Correct.
Would you then say from a marketing and sales point of view, one of the value that you are adding is then the insights that you provide? Because information is dime a dozen, right?
Exactly. And I suppose one of the very powerful tool is still storytelling.
Mm,
Because if I were to read from the website, I probably would know a lot about that particular product. I suppose how that product relates to my day-to-day life, how does it helps me as a consumer, which is really not available, and how does the telemarketing or the salesperson comes in is storytelling. And I wouldn't even want to use the word emotion selling, but it's more like telling the customer from the personal experience how does this service or product will help them in their day-to-day life when there's a crisis or when there's a mishap or when
right,
there's a
right. Oh,
yep.
I love this. I love this. So what you're saying is today, what another skill that you're seeing that your team needs is to be able to tell stories to connect.
Exactly.
Yeah, because previously maybe you talked about products and features, but today you got to humanize that product and features, and the best way to do that is through storytelling. So that's
Spot on.
another evolution of even from a telemarketing point of view, isn't it?
Spot on.
Fantastic. I love that, and this is why I love the show. We get nuggets from the leaders on the ground who are doing things so differently, so wonderfully, so impactfully. And speaking of which, what you shared earlier, I loved it. You said when you move from marketing to ops was very intentional. And that's what I love about organizations gives us platforms, right, to try out different ways to sorry, I
I,
think my can you hear me now?
yeah, you muted for me. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So what I'm saying is, what I love about organizations is it gives you platforms, right,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to test your own potential, to push your own probability, your potential, and know yourself even deeper. And that's what you did because you said I was intentional. So from the very beginning, you said you're not too sure where you're going to go, and you wanted to serve somewhere which is purposeful, where you're going to make a contribution. And then even within the organization, you said, you know what? Let me see how I can add value, and it was intentional the way you wanted to add value. And what you said was, I love this, uh, and you brought a lot of value to operations because now you were thinking from the sales and marketing point of view. Because if
Correct.
not, if not, you would have just said no, cannot. Easy to say cannot,
Which
right?
is very typical, isn't it?
It is very typical, you know. So I think from what you're saying also, I've heard other CEOs also mention sometimes it's good to move people around in different organizations, even if it's just for a month or so, just to understand each other's constraints and all. It'll be good,
Mhm.
you know. And that's a value that you brought in from the sales and marketing, understanding the customer's issue, understanding the telemarketers issue. You brought it in from operational point of view, and you added value by smoothing the process.
Right.
Yeah. So that leads me to ask about Christian about marketing and from an organizational point of view, how
Mhm.
would purposeful marketing shape the culture then of the organizations? That means in your instance, right, you were in telemarketing, then you moved into operations. How did that shape the culture? Was it also intentional the way you did it?
I suppose the organization culture, um, I mean, in a larger picture, it requires the entire ecosystem
Fair enough.
of the entire company. But I suppose in terms of collaborating with various stakeholders, you will influence them through your point of view and through that engagement with the various stakeholders. And in terms of organization culture, it's not going to, happen overnight thingy. Culture is something that is over a
Hmm.
period of time, and purposeful marketing or I don't know if I'm using it correctly, involves commitment. I always believe it's a top down approach,
Okay.
and it has to be top down approach because you have to make it sustainable. It's not just gonna be a short term, thingy that people talk about it, but we forgot about it over a period of time. So it is
Sure.
very much a top down approach, and it has to be sustainable, and the vision has to be cascaded over and over again, like as if we have not heard it. Like you probably heard it on a daily basis. Just to
Hmm.
talk about, I was previously from Accenture, and Julia Sweet is the female CEO. And till now, after I left the organization for almost like 3 years, I still remember when she talked about gender diversity and whatnot. It's like every opportunity when she is on a show, on a town hall and whatnot, she talk about it. So in terms of the organization culture, it has to be shaped in such a way that there is a top-down approach
Mhm.
and there is an ecosystem that supports it. Yeah,
Yeah.
to make it
No,
work.
I agree with that. Thank you for sharing. I believe when you also moved into the operations role, right? Uh, you also created a culture between the sales and marketing and the operations. So I'm putting aside the organizational culture. Yes, there is an overarching one, but the way you were communicating, right, with the sales and marketing and the way you collaborated, because you mentioned about collaboration,
Mm-hmm.
there was a culture between sales marketing and your operations, you see?
Yeah.
Yep. So was that also very intentional, the way you did it? And if not, what are the good things that came up from there?
Um, Ashok, can you go back to your
Sure.
question again? Yeah.
Yeah. You see, what happened was you moved from sales and marketing and you moved to operations, right? Okay. So this is what I believe. Um, every department has a culture, whether it comes by design or by default,
Mm-hmm.
right? So putting aside the organizational culture, right? If it's being pushed from top down and all that, committed communications is all very important. But at the operational level, right? I'm sure you got a lot of requests and reasonable, unreasonable. So, but you mentioned something. You said collaboration, right? There was deep collaboration. I see that as a culture that you probably drove with your team. What was your mantra to your team? And to me, that was a culture.
Right. I always believe that nobody can operate alone in an organization as if it's a Sindram Bahat. I suppose the expertise from various party will
Mm,
then brings in and makes the entire project successful. I suppose
nice.
for my team, although it's just one of the channel which AIA owns it. It may not be as big as agency, but it does contribute to the bigger picture. And
Sure.
I suppose there is this very silo approach that most organizations adopt because they will be thinking that I don't want the other party or the other stakeholder outshine and
Mm,
claims the credit and whatnot. But I suppose it's about influencing how,
nice.
back to what Stephen Covey say, right? The synergy concept. It is
Yes.
not one plus one equals to two, but one plus one equals to five and whatnot, right? So I suppose it's how do you make them understand that you have your own talent, the other party has their talent. When the talent are put together, that's why there is an exponential growth, and it has to
Nice.
be a lot of storytelling even within your team to make them
Mm,
understand it's not about your credit, my credit, your glory and my glory, and it's about that togetherness, that how we can make an exponential growth
beautiful.
within not just your department, the company as a whole.
Mm,
But it doesn't take overnight. It has to take a lot of convincing and make sure that they understand and asking question and testing the understanding what you are trying to convey. So it's a lot of communication and conversation.
nice, nice. So that is the culture that you drove, is it? In terms of collaboration, right? Because you want to create the synergy where you want to move from one plus one equals to two. Nope, nope, nope. We don't want two. We want five. You know. So that
That's right.
was thinking, and that was what you drove. And even with your team, you kept communicating that. And that is an important culture that you brought about in synergizing the two teams together. I have a question now around the challenges. There are two parts to this question because one of our guests also, our viewers has also asked a question. But I'm going to ask you first. What are some of the
Sorry,
challenges? Oh, sorry. Yes, Mama.
sorry, yeah, you're not looking at me. You're so focused on Stephanie. So I'm just thinking
Yes, yes.
there's a bigger portion coming. Steph, I want to just check in with you on a couple of things, right? Because
Right.
I think you brought out a couple of very interesting points, like nobody can operate alone, all right, and
Mm-hmm.
which is where you drove the idea of collaboration, right?
Mm-hmm.
And which is again, you're driving collaboration to be purposeful about the role, right? And of course, you also said what most leaders generally can say, which is, it's not about, who's doing better than the other, who's contributing more. Very often in businesses, marketing and sales and marketing are seen as the, I don't know, champions, godfathers,
Mm.
saviors, because they bring in the numbers,
Mm.
right?
True.
So I mean, anywhere you go, I mean, you either, I don't know whether we love marketing. Every other department, is always secondary compared to marketing because you are the ones who bring in the numbers. And here you are telling us, oh, we need to be collaborative. We all contribute to the larger purpose, right? And maybe our contribution has more clarity, right? So if you think about it from that perspective, where marketing always gets the highlight in organizations and businesses. Usually, um, most leaders in organization come from the marketing department,
That's right.
right? Yeah. So how did you manage to bring upon the idea of collaboration? So as a leader, how do you think and act to help your people who are seen to be superior in the system to say, hey, we are in the same system, we're contributing to the same purpose, and we are about the same. How do you do that?
I suppose is to go back to the basic question of why. Um,
Okay.
I, I know that there will be a lot of destruction and influence in terms of what we think and how it shapes our thinking, and also the community and the environment we are in. But I suppose, being a very purpose-driven person, I always go back to the question, why we do what we do. I suppose if you answer the question of why we do what we do, I suppose that's where you will have the conviction to not just influence other to do the same, but your action will have to be congruent to what you ask them to do. So I suppose it is your own conviction about why you do what you do. Go back to the basic, and I suppose if you have that purpose and the why, the answer behind the why, and that's where that makes it easier for you to be that source of influence to the rest of the people. Yeah.
Sure, thanks. Now, I'm just curious, right? I'm not sure whether you'd agree with me. I'm throwing a statement, so let me know if you agree with me. So, is it fair for me to generalize, right, that in the past, when we talk about marketing, marketing was very autonomous.
Mm,
They were seen to be driving the business.
right.
And what you are now saying is that, hey, we need to, yeah, we may have been the soul of the business, but now we
Mm-hmm.
need to collaborate for us to bring about the growth that we want in the business, right? That's what is that what you're saying? So it's fair for me to say that from your perspective,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
Now, as a leader, so if you would have seen, you've been in the industry for 25 years, right? As a leader, what is a major shift in mindset and values do you think leaders need if they are so used to being the autonomous department unit that was contributing? You know
Mm-hmm.
how businesses, some departments are profit centers and some
Right.
departments seen as cost centers. So I've been this champion of profit center, right? And now for me to feel like I am one of the family members, right? So what's the mindset shift you think leaders need to make that shift from being so autonomous now to being collaborative? And values, mindset and value shift. Okay, yeah.
Okay. Um, I suppose leaders nowadays, if you are just looking at profitability alone, it's going to be very shallow. Um, Not sure whether I'm using the correct terminology, but I suppose leaders nowadays are faced with broader KPIs and broader um, commitment to not just navigate through profitability. I think the major one thing that we all discuss and study, and I'm sure you hear it over and over again, are impacting us is the environmental impact, the
Mm.
gender equality, the very complex issue right now of fair labor practice, whether what we are doing is ethical, not ethical, whether we are being responsible to the shareholders at large. I suppose if you are doing things right the first time and every time, um, I know it sounded very cliche. However, I always believe that's the right thing to do. And but then again, when you're pressured with profitability and ROI, and how are you going to gain that return on investment within that period of time? So it cluttered and it sort of like pressure you for certain decision making. I suppose it is still, the keyword is sustainability, whether you want it to be a long term business or long term strategy for your business, or you're looking at short term. I suppose if you want to look at it as a long term strategy for your business, and that's where all this purposeful marketing has to be part of your consideration, or you just want to make it known for a short period of time, and they will soon collapse because you compromise certain values and um,
Oh,
ethics.
nice.
And
Nice. Loved it. Loved it. So, what I'm hearing, oh, this is so profound for me because what I'm hearing you say is, yes, we've been hitting numbers in the past. We still need to hit numbers and we're looking at profitability. But
Mhm.
today, so that could have been your why, but today the business environment has become so complex. Just the why and the what doesn't matter. How we achieve the numbers actually matters for our sustainability and for being responsible. And when you are trying to hit so many things, when you're trying to do it right
Mm,
by the different stakeholders who may not be directly related to the business, right?
mm,
Your stakeholder now has shifted, right? The power in stakeholding has shifted, right? You're looking at sustainability, you're looking at diversity, gender equity. So there's so many factors that's
yeah,
coming in. How do you build a long-term business by making the right decision every time so that you will then sustain the business long run. So you're talking about short term and long term, which is why numbers, i.e., profitability, cannot be the only criteria for marketing,
that's
is
right.
what I'm hearing. Okay,
That's right.
thank you so much. I thought that's so profound. Thank you, Ashok. You can have Stephanie.
Really? You sure? Okay. No, I
Yes, yes.
love that, Stephanie, because again, you're very clear from the very beginning when you talked about how can I make a contribution, and you're still very purposeful in the way you're speaking, because what you just shared was, hey guys, you need to know your why you're doing what you're doing, and that drives your focus, your energy, your actions, and that's important. At the same point in time, what you said is, hey, let's not just look at short term, let's look at long term. Let's be very purposeful about a why for long term and make sure it's sustainable. you know and you know what, these brings challenges. And we have a question here from Nara Subramaniam, right? He said, can you talk about the challenges in marketing in Malaysia versus other countries from your experience? What are some of the challenges that we are facing in Malaysia?
Well, I personally felt that purposeful marketing can build trust and loyalty, and consumers, as I mentioned, that increasingly skeptical about greenwashing as well, and insincere marketing efforts. And I suppose the challenges of Malaysia versus other country is the transparency. I suppose the leaders generally in Malaysia are still very much lack of transparency when it comes to delivering the marketing message. When I say lack of transparency, means there will be still a little bit here and there sugar coating. And I suppose if your actions are not genuine or you are not sincere, your customer can felt it, and that's where
Mhm.
you don't want to miss the chance of delivering the message to your client. There's this one chance, and you use it correctly, you got it right. But if you abuse it, I suppose you will have you need more time to salvage it. So therefore, if you genuinely align with the organization broader purpose, that will avoid a lot of repetition risk, as well as then it becomes a very targeted marketing. Yeah,
Right.
not sure whether. Yeah.
Yeah. So for what Nara Subramaniam is asking is, for that question, your answer is, one of the biggest challenges in Malaysia is about transparency from the leaders, right? Customers' behaviors and needs have shifted. We get that, but I think it's about how the leaders come forward in being very clear about what they're doing, and the best
Mm,
way to make sure that you're still focused on the true north is being linked to your purpose,
mm.
your organizational purpose. All right. Thank you very much. We have another question from Gerald, right? And Gerald says, why such a powerful three-letter word, right? Because you said earlier on you got to go and understand your why. So he's got also a challenging question. His question is, marketing has shifted quite a bit over the years.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the strategies you have implemented navigating through post-pandemic challenges?
Okay. I perfectly understand that question because it may not be relevant for my channel, but I've seen it from my existing organization. It's predominantly agency business is very face to face, meaning
Mm-hmm.
I need to pay you a visit to share with you the product, and I realized that it has shifted to a very virtual
Sure.
way of delivering the same message and
Mm-hmm.
care and concern. At the same time, it is still achieving the same purpose. So it does not sort of like very fixated to be, I have to go and see a customer face to face, but
Mm-hmm.
then I can still do it virtually um, over a technology like a Zoom or a Microsoft Team or WeChat and whatnot. I'm not sure whether I'm answering your question, but that's how I see it from my current organization.
Right. So what you're saying is the way people interact is one area that you've seen in a post-pandemic world, right? So marketing has to shift also by using different platforms. So I can then cascade to another question around that, which is, what are the skills then one requires to stay in track? All right, because we are talking about purposeful marketing, yes, but things have shifted post-pandemic. So what are some of the skills that one would require to stay on track and to be sustainable with purposeful marketing?
Personally, I still feel that we need to stay up to date with the industry trends and constantly learning new
Okay.
skill is essential for long term and also sustainable marketing. And I
Mhm.
suppose at the end of the
Nice.
day, it's still your own your own curiosity, right? It's
Okay.
like if you are very contented to be just where you are and not asking a lot of questions how to improve that experience, you will be very
Nice.
contented to be that situation. For me, I feel that the pre and post pandemic has changed and shifted the landscape of marketing. If you, I'm not sure whether you agree with me, but for me, especially in terms of purchasing a product, I don't just walk to the mall and buy stuff anymore. I do my own research. I will go to different
Mm.
platform. I evaluate the delivery cost, whether what does the consumer review about that particular product. Likewise, we are given a lot of tools and information to make an informed decision, and therefore, I suppose um, at the end of the day, whichever organization we work with has to really look at customers' experience as a total experience rather than, I want to get something out of this consumer.
Mm.
And so customers also become more intelligent at the end of the day. So therefore, I realized that, yeah, we also need to be constantly upgrade our knowledge in terms of the
Nice.
trend, yeah, and the
Nice.
changes in the technology space.
Right, right. So what I'm hearing is for the skills, right? Is yes, you need to keep in touch with your industry trends. You need to understand what is the shifts in technology, shifts in customers' behaviors, and most importantly, for me, is being consistently curious about
Mm,
how you can improve your service delivery and shift the experience. These are four things
that's
I
right.
took away. Thank you. Muller, you have a question.
Well, I'm going to read Nara. Nara says, "Great response, Stephanie, on transparency, genuineness, alignment, and not to abuse the rights. Thank you very much." So he liked your response. So that's good. Thank you, Nara, for responding to that. So a couple of things that's been repeating. Like you say, customers have become more
Mhm,
intelligent.
mhm,
We keep using the word
mhm.
intelligent, but I think I'm not sure whether, as a customer, whether I feel more intelligent. I think I feel overwhelmed by a lot more information, and because I now know how to use the right words, I feel I can sound intelligent. I'm not sure whether, as a customer, I'm really intelligent, but I'll take your word. So the consistent thing that you've been saying is customers are, they know what they want. They're smarter in that sense, right? And of course, Ashok also brought in the question of the latest skill. Now we know now communication has been always a space where marketing either leads,
Mm-hmm.
because marketing is communication, right? Right, where we are bridging the business to the consumer, right?
That's right.
In whatever we do in marketing. So communication and communication skills are really, really important. And here, customers are having a lot more information about the so-called their needs and products and services. Now, today we have ChatGPT that's also contributing in many ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very curious to know in your experience, because if so on one hand we're saying ChatGPT is going to, in some ways, I won't use the word upskill, it's
Mm-hmm.
probably going to make people to jump skills, because now as a service provider I can learn how to use ChatGPT and respond professionally,
Mm-hmm.
profoundly to my customer without understanding what I'm saying. One
That's right.
hand. On the other hand, so if those who use ChatGPT, if they truly understand the response that ChatGPT is providing, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now we're going to sound good. Because then on the other hand, you also have customers who are going to use ChatGPT to do their basic research.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds even more intelligent. So where do you see with these kind of shifts that's happening with customer behavior,
Mm-hmm.
right? And reskilling or upskilling that is required to cope with customer behavior. How do you see this impacting marketing and the skills that is required?
Mala, good question. I thought about that,
I
and
just thought about it. Yeah.
and in fact, Mala, at one point, I am so struggle when it comes to hiring the right person or the capabilities for the industry I'm in, that I am even exploring AI, who speak exactly like a human being for my business. But unfortunately, financial institution is highly regulated in Malaysia, and the kind of eh, objection handling is just too complicated for the system to comprehend, and therefore, AI is a no go for my business. And when you were explaining about how ChatGPT is like the big thing, and even the professor in university are struggling to identify whether this is under plagiarism, not plagiarism, and back to my industry, I just realized one thing, that this chat GPT and AI cannot replace is a human emotion that my team has, and that is a very powerful tools when it comes to marketing, because emotion is something that the technology cannot provide to my potential customers. And though they can give a very impactful storytelling, but I still feel that emotion part is lacking, and we are dealing with human beings. We are not dealing with machines and tools and whatnot. So human beings, very much, whether you are selling a product, you're selling a services, the emotion element has to come in, whether you agree with me or not. But insurance business is very emotion selling. Though the product is important, but in fact, how do you bridge the needs of the product and the product is still that emotion attachment. So I still feel that technology cannot replace that elements of the emotion that is
Okay. I
actually.
totally agree. I totally agree with you, totally resonate. And I'm all about emotions. But I mean, having worked in the space of customer service, right? And I'm talking about this part of the world, all right? And if you look at maybe in the last 10 years, right? When we do customer intervention work or customer service intervention work, one of the big, I would say, challenge that I find that we face in terms of skills of our customer service personnel is communication, especially now, right? And so I see you nodding, so I'm assuming you agree, right? And even when we do programs around emotional intelligence, right? We I'm not sure whether we have. It is fair to assume that our people have more access to the emotional language compared to AI. I'm not sure,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so that's ideal because the differentiator between a human and the AI technology is that we are still human and we
Mm-hmm.
can deal with complexity because we have the experience and the skills and we are human. We know how to bring it into context. Whereas we know what AI is doing is that it's looking at patterns, bringing words together, and giving an output, right? Uh, but how skilled are we in this part of the world where communication is concerned? Because all buying decisions are emotional,
Mm.
right? And in specific industry, it is clearer than other industries like the insurance industry, right? But because you said human beings, we are still different because we bring in the human emotion. Now, in your experience and opinion, and if you look at our skilled customer service people who are doing the marketing and the converse communication, do we really know how to deal with the emotions better than AI?
Okay. To begin with, AI has no emotion. So therefore, it makes a conversation a lot more palatable for the end consumer who does not know that they are talking to an AI customer service. To be fair, Mala, if I look at the landscape of insurance, in terms of the training provided for the customer service team or even for the sales team, is very much sales driven. This is a very skills driven training. Hardly or very minimal training is given to deal with the emotion part of handling difficult customers or handle irate customers. I realize it's very lopsided. It's very skills driven to satisfy a customer or close a sale. It is therefore it makes the customer service or the front line very reactive to the comment, to the statements, instead of respond. So there is this react instead of responding to the customer that makes the entire experience not palatable. So in my opinion, it has to be a 50-50 kind of training given by service provider or internal academy rather than very lopsided. I don't know whether you agree with me, but that's how I see the whole landscape of the training environment provided at this point in time.
No, I agree. I mean, I agree as to whether we like it or not. If we look at the training industry in Malaysia, skills training is considered to be more valuable than what now we call soft skills, i.e., power skills.
Mm-hmm.
We either make the assumption that people have the soft skills, which I'm not sure, or we don't value power skill as an important skill that our employees should have, right? But more importantly, I think in whether it's marketing or purposeful marketing, I think I agree with you on that. But I think more importantly, what I see is that when you're chasing numbers
Mm.
and when you are chasing time, it's very difficult to chase all these numbers and be present with your customer to truly listen, understand, and respond to their needs because it takes time. And time is something we don't have because we are rushing to close the ticket.
Exactly. And to your point, Mala, that's where the word intentional comes into the picture.
Mm.
And intentional has to be practiced. It will not happen overnight, but therefore the intentional, purposeful marketing has to take place and has to be practiced, has to do it over and over again until it's part of the system and part
Yeah.
of the yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm of the opinion, because we've been pushing people to meet numbers, we've lost the muscle of listening and being present for the purpose that we intended to serve in the first place. Because when we meet so when I work with customers, clients who are very customer focused, where
Mm-hmm.
time is not the major factor that they are chasing, I find that
Mm-hmm.
even when people are not sent for formal training, just being present resolve they truly are able to resolve a lot of issues for their customers. And I'm not saying skills are not important, but without time, we
The
think we
pressure
can
of time.
yeah, the pressure, with the pressure of meeting numbers, right, like any other
Mm.
role, I think it gets challenging. So that's been my experience. So thank you very much, Stephanie. I think you've given us really a clear indicator why purposeful marketing and the connection to actually sustainable business, and how all of that actually adds on to the customer experience overall, and where our intention falls and comes together. And Ashok, I tell you, no more questions. I'm going to pass it to you to ask the last question, summarize and close.
Thank you very much for that, Malan. Yes, Stephanie, thank you for sharing about the views about marketing, and yes, as much as I can see why a lot of financial institutions look at a training from less focus on skills to get in the numbers, I feel there is also where we can find the middle ground. The middle ground for me in marketing is really about solving customers' problems. So I feel that even in sales trainings, if we start shifting from just about learning about closing to finding problem sales conversations, I feel there could be a middle ground there, right?
Mm.
Where we serve to solve problems at the same point of time we get the numbers in. I'm trying to find a middle ground. So we have a question here. Last question from Nara. I love the philosophical aspects of purposeful and intentional. Can you give me a couple of examples of this done as per your experience?
Nora, good question. Um, I I manage a team of telemarketing team who has been selling for years. They are very senior in an organization. So changing habit is something that is everybody tell me that wow, that is going to be difficult and you're going to you know be challenged. And I realized that if they continue to sell the way they sell, it's going to have repercussion um, eventually. So being very intentional means you have to stop them from using the easy way out to sell. Means you don't tell customer that the insurance is a long-term commitment and insurance is you can buy and cancel the next day. So I suppose the first thing I did when I take over the operation of the team is I stopped them for selling short term instead of long term because insurance is not for short term. And when you want to make it very intentional means you have to punish people who are abusing the system, which we are not punishing them prior of me handling that operation. So intentional means you have to intentionally correct what is not right and make it right. And you're not just communicating, but you have to implement it with action. And that's where there is sustainability of the business and persistency, which is one of the KPI that makes sure that this business is sustainable. I'm not sure whether I answer your question, but very much related to my environment is the lack of clarity when they explain to the customer, which I feel is not right. And so that is something very intentional. I need them to make it right and make sure that we are doing a more sustainable business.
Nice, nice. I loved your answers because what I loved about your answer was stop people from doing the easy way of selling, right? Don't take the shortcut. Don't make it easy for yourself in that sense. Do right by the customers. And that is why you're very intentional about the doing what's right and correct what's wrong. That means your focus from the beginning has been to contribute to society And now, as we end 1 hour from this beautiful, awesome interview, yes, I agree, Nara, right? Is you're still saying the same thing. Let's do right by the customers, right? So you have seen. Thank you for sharing in this whole 1 hour how marketing is a way to contribute and make a difference to consumers, help consumers solve their problems, and most importantly, let's be clear about our purpose about marketing. And let's
That's right.
now pick up skills on understanding the emotional aspect and storytelling as an important skills in the way we solve customers' problems. And that is all about purposeful marketing.
Wow. You sum it up so accurately.
Thank you very much for that. Do you have last words for all who are viewing in, logging into view before we end the show?
Yeah, I want to thank Mala for giving me this opportunity and to have this session. It just gave me more clarity even as I began to share my insight and input. I suppose we're all in an ecosystem of a big wider community called consumer. And I suppose if we do things right, and if that particular action can influence the people, maybe just one or two people around us, and that can become a bigger movement whereby the people around you will start influencing a bigger or another community. So I would like to see as whether you call it pay it forward or it is not, it cannot be just what we say, but your action actually speak louder than what you have to say. So I think
Nice.
that's what I would like to end this session with. And thank you very much for the audience who has patiently listened for the past 1 hour. I hope you know you get some nuggets out of this session.
Oh, I think more than nuggets for me. Muller, for you, before we end the show.
Oh, no, no. I'm so glad I had the conversation, and I'm so glad you said yes to the show. And I'd like to really thank you for saying yes to the show and being really candid and authentic with your responses. And I think that's what I liked about you. And that's why we love Leadership in Flow Asia, because we bring in leaders who speak from their heart and put the show back where we want conversations to happen, which is their flow state. So thank you so much, Stephanie. As we say goodbye to Stephanie, uh, okay to say goodbye. Yeah, Ashok was going to
Bye
cry
bye,
again.
Stephanie.
Yeah. So as we say
Wow.
goodbye to Stephanie, yeah, so it's been a fulfilling time. And we've had a couple of new people who have actually responded or commented. Coach Nam, thank you very much.
Yep.
Nora, special thanks to you for not only joining us, but putting in your comments and engaging with us. So that was really, really good. Thank you very much. And Ashok, it was really nice to be co hosting again with you. And I must say that Stephanie has given us a lot of things that resonates in our heart for us to
Yes.
think about and go
Exactly.
back to our very own purpose of leadership in flow. With that, this is Mallory signing off from Malaysia.
And Ashok from Singapore. Thank you all for logging in and see you all same time next week.
Bye.
Bye.